Hello, everybody. Today, Mia and I are talking about our tricks for a cozy home art studio. Welcome to Art Prof. We are a global art party. Mia, you look pretty cozy here.
Yes, you need to make your studio space a home, and I take that very seriously, and I nap on the floor.
At least you can see the floor. I have some days where it's this big path that I have to move things around to get through to the door. But I wonder, do you really feel cozy in your home studio?
I think it depends. I think a lot of what we're going to chat about today is ways to make the studio feel more comfortable because I think that a studio is a place of work and development and therefore maybe a source of stress a lot of the time when you're working with a ton of materials. So, yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
Tell us in the comments, how many of you here have a home studio and where is it? I'm lucky enough that I have a whole room to myself. Granted, it is very crowded sometimes, but before I moved to Salt Lake City, I didn't have an enclosed room, and that was very stressful. So I'm very grateful. However, I don't really want a cozy art studio because if it's too cozy, I feel like I'll just take a nap and be too comfortable. What's your definition of cozy?
Well, Neil in the comments said that they just mostly draw in bed, and I think that I relate to that a lot because before I had my own space, I would just want to be comfortable. I would want to be relaxed to or in order to make the best work that I could make. So I wanted to curate a space for myself when this room became available to make really cozy so that I would want to get out of bed and go somewhere else that was full of light, very cozy chairs, things like that. Because if it's just somewhere dark and like messy and cluttered, I'm just never going to want to go in there and work. It needs to be a little bit comfortable for me to go in.
I can't be comfortable. I have to be awake. And if something's comfortable, I'm asleep. That's one of the reasons I don't sit on the couch during the day because the second I'm on a soft pillow, it's all over for me. We've got some great comments about people's home art studios. Sandra says the kitchen. Randy says bedroom. Amaris says my mom is going to have one built for me in the backyard. Jen says dining room. Manette says living room. Jennifer says bedroom slash art room or more of a temporary art section. Well, my other temporary section is my coffee table because then I can watch a Benedict Cumberbatch movie. So that way I can not stress. Do you have a temporary space other than your dedicated studio?
Yes, I'd say that I'm split into three areas. I have one area in my bedroom that I use to package things, so it's more like a business center. I have my bed, which I still use to answer emails and do digital work mostly. That's where I'm super comfortable. I might work there at night before I go to bed a little bit, or in the morning with my coffee. And then when I'm doing the real big girl paintings, like oil paintings, watercolor, I'll use my room upstairs, which is what we're looking at here. And that's like a space that I made just for art creation. That's the only purpose. When I'm in that room, that is what I'm doing. There's not an option to watch TV or anything like that.
One of the first decisions that I think is important for a home studio is where your desk is set up, assuming you have a desk. I know not everybody does, but I have to imagine yours has a lot to do with the natural light in your room.
Yeah, I'm very lucky because this room does have a lot of windows, and I'm actually moving soon to a different apartment. So I'm going to be missing all of the light. But I tried to position my desk so that I would have lighting on the piece that I'm working on, instead of, if it was maybe flipped the opposite direction, I might have a lot of lighting on me, but the painting might be in shadow. Or if you're someone who films your work process, you should be aware of filming and the different shadows that will be cast on whatever piece you're working on. Things like that will really affect where you position your desk in relation to whatever light you're using.
Tell us in the comments if you have a desk and what kind it is, because my desk is hideous. That's why you can't even see it. It's just buried under all these things. But for me, it's been extremely important in terms of doing live streams, having things set up so I can see my screen clearly. For example, I just got this awesome mic stand, which I've been dreaming about. Thank you so much, Louise, for getting that. And that has changed my life. I used to have to set things up really specifically because I only had a mic stand. And this thing, I mean, I can just move this thing around anywhere. And I just love this flexibility. So there's certain pieces of furniture that I think are extremely important. And for me, it all revolves around the screen, the webcam, the mic. But the mic was, oh my gosh, such a godsend. Do you have pieces of equipment, Mia, that you have really gotten excited about or that drive you a little crazy?
Yeah, well, in my studio space that I'm rocking with right now upstairs, my studio space is also always evolving based on which pieces that I'm working on. So I have one desk on this side of the room, which is my oil painting desk. So I have my oil palette and my paints over there, and whatever surface I'm painting on, which tends to be larger than my watercolor. And my watercolor situation is the table across the way, with some watercolors and a sketchbook. And I always bounce between different projects at once. So having both set up at the same time is super convenient. I used to just be in my bedroom doing all of these things at one time, and I had to rotate between oil painting, watercolor, rug tufting in one desk. And it was extremely chaotic and extremely messy. So it's nice to have a place where they can all live and coexist at one time.
C. Cantrell says one bedroom apartment. Colleen says small room, but it's crowded. Kevin draws in his recliner. Sometimes it's really that one piece of furniture that can make or break a space. We also have Counselor Chip, a wall in my office, garage for messy sculpting stuff. Brenda says, used to have a great one. Now it's all over the place. I know that feeling. Yes, Minette, I am dreaming with you about the studio with a sunroom and all the beautiful light, which is cascading. We also have Neil, who's asking a question. I don't use tables or chairs, don't have space, just use the floor or my bed, which is a mattress. Is that bad for my posture? Right now it's fine, but maybe bad long term. Yeah, you got to be careful about sitting in a particular pose for too long. I actually started when I sit on the couch and I'm just doing stuff on my phone, I always put a pillow that's a little bit behind my neck. And that's been a really big game changer because I kept doing this, which was a bad idea. And I do find with home studios, you got to get up and walk around. The next tip, have fun with cute containers. You have so many baskets, Mia.
I have lots of fun baskets to hold my brushes and some paints in. And I also have an unending Rolodex of little containers and yogurt cups and jars that I use for watercolor water, and sometimes solvent, but I've only really been using one little container for that recently. I just find that it's like a fun, small way to personalize the space. And I always come across these things like naturally, either like a friend gave them to me or I found them really cheap, like $2 at like a thrift store or something. And I'm just always having my studio in mind just to make it, spruce it up a little bit and make it yours. I think that's a fun way to go about it.
Your studio is super pretty and you have the nicest little containers. I'm 100% utilitarian. I'm obsessed with these containers. They're sort of like yogurt jars, but the thing is they're clear and it makes it easy for me to notice that, oh, there's my crazy glue. It's at the very bottom of that container. But I just have stacks of these because they're the exact right height. The small ones, I can't quite fit things in there, but this is how most of my supplies are. And sometimes I say, oh, I'm going to get all organized and I'm going to get these organized by pencils. And then ultimately I end up with this, which is just whatever. It's just sitting here. They're better than just keeping things spread all over the place. But I have found I have favorite containers that work for particular things. And yes, I know I have ugly plastic bins. You said that you try to avoid these.
Well, I try to avoid them, but I'm finding I probably need them because I have cute containers that work really well, and then I have cute containers that don't work for anything, and they just take up space because things either fall out of them or, I don't know, nothing fits in them. So it's a give and take situation. Sometimes it's a perfect fit, and other times they're a waste of space.
I need clear containers. The second I have opaque containers, I have no idea where anything is. Tell me in the comments, how many people like the clear containers? Because I just have bins of stuff and I need to be able to identify. I'm very utilitarian, Mia. And then my other latest obsession is trays. Do you have any trays?
I have, well, not really. I have one watercolor palette that's really tray-like, but I only really put my brushes on there, so I haven't experienced the full glory of what a tray can offer me.
I like this tray because it's a little bit deep. And the one I'm using right now is largely for the oil paintings that I've been doing. But I like it because if I'm working on a project and I have all different kinds of media in there, like I'm using colored pencil and watercolor and all that stuff, I just put it all in that tray. And then I know, oh, I don't have to go digging for things because everything's in that tray. In fact, I really need to get more. And I feel bad because this tray, I initially bought it to soak printmaking paper. So it was supposed to be pristine. And now it's disgusting.
Everything finds its use somewhere down the line.
See, Jen, you understand me. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. It's like the refrigerator, out of sight, out of mind. You're in big trouble when you can't see that yogurt container anymore. Denise says, corner of my dining room, trash picked 2-foot by 6-foot table behind the couch, so tall, I use lots of baskets, like getting busy and messy. Jen says, love using mugs that aren't great to drink out of. Oh, I've got so many broken mugs around. They're really handy. And we also have adjustable height desk. Jordan has one. And I was going to get a standing desk, but you know something? I didn't break my foot, but I had a really bad foot injury like a month after I bought that. And it made me sad. I never got to unpack it. And then my husband took it and now it's not mine anymore. So who knows? Maybe I won't ever have that back again. This is important too, designating areas for specific media. I noticed, Mia, you've got this tower of yarn.
I do. That's my little, well, it's kind of my big rug tufting corner. I need all this yarn. I do agree with if I can't see it, it doesn't exist. So if I can't see one shade of color that I have in yarn, I'll just assume I don't have it and then I'll buy more. And then I'll just end up with a waste of material and losing money. So it helps to keep these all stacked up and it helps keep materials nice. If I threw my rug tufting gun in like a random bin, then odds are it would get broken or something would happen to it. And so it's better to just keep it where it belongs. And yeah, I luckily have the space where I can do that for now. So I'm trying to make the most out of it.
You know what I think is the biggest transition for an artist is when you go from working in your bedroom to another room, because I remember for you, you were painting in your bedroom for a long time.
I was painting in my bedroom, both watercolor and oil paint. I was doing rug tufting in the middle of my bedroom. And for all of those things to coexist and then also exist where I was doing laundry and my clothes are on the floor, and it was just kind of a nightmare situation. I guess it did keep me a little bit inspired to clean, but I don't know. It was just not it was not the ideal situation. But you can make it work. I think that you can make a bedroom studio work.
I think working at home in general can be challenging though, because sometimes I go downstairs to get a drink and I always walk past the laundry machine. I'm like, oh, I should get a load in there. And so there are oftentimes distractions, especially if you don't have a really dedicated space. And I find that a little bit hard to focus. I'm pretty good at it now because I've had to do it in many circumstances, but I think what's hard is where's that boundary between your regular life and your artist life? So I want to hear from people in terms of separating parts of the house from your workspace. How do you go about doing that? Because sometimes I'll do something really messy, like I was casting that bust that I'd done for Sweeney Todd, and I just took over the dining room table because it's one big table that we have, but we couldn't eat there for like a week and a half. So sometimes you just have to deal with that.
Something's got to give.
This is my little shelf tip. You can fit more stuff if you organize them by height. So I put the tall bottles in the back and then I put the little ones at the bottom. It actually works. I get to fit a lot of stuff. Do you have shelves?
I want to have shelves. I have kind of rickety shelves from Walmart or something that I got really cheap for college, and I just kept them, and they are like one gust of wind away from just collapsing. So I'll be taking some of this advice for the next studio I have.
It's not shampoo, it's hairspray, because I was doing a video about fixative and I was trying to tell people don't use it if you're worried about things being archival. That shelf, there's so much on it, you guys. This is like, oh gosh, I think I have 5 shelves of this, and this is only like a third of the shelf. It's so out of control, everybody. We also have a question from Butter. And a reminder to everybody, if you do have a question, please type question in caps. So that way we can see your question. And if we don't see it, please remind us. Butter says, I've been working with oil paint on paper. I'm running out of places to stash them while they dry. My lunatic cat is the main issue. I keep joking that I need a bear-proof container. Butter, if you could tell us in the comments how big are the pieces that you're doing, because I have seen people hang up paintings like laundry if they're on paper.
I know that they have those drying racks as well. They make them in different sizes. If you have room to put one of those in a corner, you can kind of slide the paper in between the racks, and it's a little more difficult for a cat to finagle its way into.
Yeah, Brenda says, right now I have a cat that wants to be in the middle of the mess. Tell us in the comments who here has a pet, and do they impact your life in your home studio? Because I have Buddy and he's a really big dog, but he's really nice. He'll just like come into my office and he'll just sit there. He doesn't like get into things very much. So I feel very lucky because pets, oh gosh, they definitely have a way of making that happen. This is what I do. I always stack all of my pastel marker set, anything that comes in a box that has multiple things in it, like colored pencils. I always know it's going to be there. So that's the one time where I actually do organize things by media. Thank you so much, Ariel, for the super chat, who says, I'm grateful for your videos. So many great art tips. Well, thank you, everybody, for your support. Okay, the next tip we have for you is to consider the scale of the work you're making. I feel like your studio space determines how big you can work. Have you discovered that, Mia?
Yeah, because it's not just about the size of the canvas you're currently working on, but it's about where you're going to store all of the ones that you've already made and all the new ones that you are going to make. So it's a lot easier if I were to do a lot of smaller, flat paper watercolor paintings than it would be if I were to make a bunch of 24 by 36 really thick oil paintings. And so I've tried to strike a balance between the two over the past couple years. And I'd say the more that I've practiced, the more I know, okay, I can maybe handle about this many more oil paintings versus this many watercolor paintings. And also, yeah, just making sure that your easel can hold up the weight, making sure that you have the palette the right size, all that good stuff.
I prefer to have a really big glass palette. I wish I had one that was 18 by 24, which I know for some people feels absurdly large, but I really like the palette because it's so big that you don't have to clean it very often. So it makes it possible for me to paint longer periods without cleaning it off. But my space is small enough that it's really not practical for me to have a large palette like that. I do really like tray tables. I feel like those are easy to fold up. So I use those a lot during the live streams because I can just put my supplies on and then fold it up and have it gone. I did have a supply cart. I was like, oh, I'll get this cute little cart. It's on wheels. I'll roll it around and I can do. And it just ended up becoming this horrible dumping ground.
Yeah, that's the problem is that I have the doom chaos chair no matter what room I'm in. It finds itself somehow.
Does anybody here have a dumping ground? Come on, let us know. Sometimes it's my closet. Sometimes I look at the shelf and I go, I could squeeze one more box of supplies in there. And I always say I'm going to get it under control because I have done things where I just tear my house apart looking for one dumb supply and I can't find it. And so I go and I rebuy it and then I find it later. How many people have done that? You can't find the supply, so you have to go buy it. Have you done that?
Oh yes. Yeah. That's why I'm trying to do the keep every material visible so that I know, and also keeping everything in its assigned location because I tend to use something like this happened to me yesterday. Sorry, there's cars playing music. This happened to me yesterday. I bought a new metallic gold paint marker and I was using it to sign prints. And then I put it on the ground and then it vanished off the face of the earth and it no longer exists. And so I had to go buy a new one because I couldn't find it. And so it's important to have either a cup or a pencil case or something that those little materials specifically don't get lost in the ether of your studio.
The worst thing for me is I was trying to find that silver point needle, and I have so many things that look like a silver point needle, like an X-Acto blade and all the I still couldn't find it. And so ultimately I did have the company Yasutomo sent me a bunch of those, but I felt like an idiot because I was like, I totally have this somewhere in my studio. But another fun thing about studios is you get creative about your furniture. So for example, I was doing that big Moulin Rouge commission, and my studio really doesn't have a lot of space. It was very cramped for a while, but I thought, okay, it's just temporary. I just until I finish this stuff. But I liked using my music stand. I felt like that was a really smart thing because I needed something to hold up the reference image that I was using. I was like, I haven't used my music stand in a really long time. This is totally perfect for that. I like it when I figure out those hacks.
That is strangely perfect.
Isn't
That's so
it?
perfect.
September says, got a couple Husky work desks from the hardware store. Pricey, but they've big drawers. Oh, I would like big drawers. Yeah, give us your suggestions because, oh God, of course we need more items to put into our studio space. And we also have Sketch Paws. My dumping ground is that one drawer that just can't stay organized. So I let it happen. We give up at a certain point. Like, no, this is not helpful. Nessa says microwave turntables, the glass on the inside you set stuff on, make great mulling surface and palette. And I often find them in thrift shops for $1. Well, you were painting on a refrigerator shelf at one point, Mia.
It was that I pulled from the garbage. I like the microwave trick. That sounds awesome. And it's round, which is fun. A fun shape is always a fun addition to a studio setup.
All right. The next tip we're going to give you is to hang finished works on the wall. You know something? I never really did this before, Mia, but I noticed that when I go to your studio, you have a whole bunch of pieces on the wall, and it's really lovely to have that.
I think that it doubles as storage space, which is always good. And it shows, it's sort of a gallery of your own accomplishments throughout when you have your studio to, as you're working on new pieces. And it's sort of inspiring to look at everything that you've accomplished so far and keep that in mind when you're developing new pieces, because not only will they inspire you to keep working and keep filling the wall, but you'll also be able to recognize different patterns in your work. Maybe you want to try something new. Maybe you want to recreate the same technique you did in one piece. So there's a lot of benefits to it. And it's always just nice to see all of your work in one spot. It's always cool.
The fact of the matter is, if I don't hang my stuff on the wall, it's sitting buried under a big pile on my shelf. And I have far more work than I'm ever going to be able to show. But it felt nice. Like, I took the time to do this a couple months ago. I was like, oh, that's sort of nice. I actually don't mind that. So I'm wondering how many people here have that, because I think sometimes one of the dangers for me is I'll stare at the painting and go, oh, I need to work on this. Oh, I should have. Like, I definitely do that to a certain degree. But have you found, Mia, the longer you live with a painting, the less you do that?
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of proud of myself because I'm a very nitpicky person. So I will work a piece to death. But I find that as soon as I put it on the wall, it becomes something from the past where I'll look at something, and even if I don't like it or I see things that I can tweak, I'm like, oh, well, guess I just didn't do that part, keeping it in mind for the next one. So it's a cool little psychological barrier, which is helpful. If I took any of them off the wall, maybe they'd be completely fair game for me to go back into, but we have yet to see.
For me, the dangerous time period is a couple weeks after I finish it, when it's still on my mind. Once I get past those couple weeks, I'm fine. These pieces have been on my wall for a while and they're not driving me crazy. So I guess that's a pretty good sign. Butter is asking, what do you use to hang things on the wall so as to not damage wall or the art? I actually do have here, well, this is damaging the wall a little bit. I have push pins, but what I do with the push pins is I don't put them through the art. I put the push pin in and I slide the drawing underneath. And that's sometimes a nice thing because I would rather not put the push pins through the artwork. Artist Zena says, use blue tack for paper on the wall, not to damage wall or work. I've used a lot of that blue tack and it's very handy, except when it's warm and humid, it starts melting. So it depends on your space. What are you using to hang up your stuff?
If it's a really heavy gesso block that I'm doing oil painting on, I will use a thin nail. But most of the time I can get away with, if it's like a piece of watercolor paper or anything like that, I can get away with just a command strip. I find that if it's on the wall long enough, it's able to pull off of the artwork really easily, or I'll just use a thumbtack as well. Those are like my big three.
I love this tip from Lisa. Huge magnetic whiteboard is a great place to hang pieces with magnets. And I do have a whiteboard that somebody got me during the painting marathon. And I am embarrassed to say that I have not had time to take it out of the box, but I am going to be using it for some anatomy lectures, which I do want to get to pretty soon. And we also have some other dreams for me. Somebody here is talking about flat files. Oh my gosh, that is my studio dream, is to have just rows of flat files. Someday I'll be able to have that to store my prints, because it's such a hassle that I have to store my prints in a portfolio that lean against the wall. So yes, it would be really, really nice to have that. Yes, artist Zena is the one who is reminding me about that dream someday. Let's talk about lighting. What's your take on lighting, Mia? Because I think we all know we need to see our work well.
Yeah, I think I already hit on this a little bit before when we were talking about the windows, but I think that I think it's just really important to, if you're not amongst natural light, really invest in those light sources. I would have like one lamp on either side if I didn't have a natural light source, because it makes such a difference. It also makes a difference if you're using fluorescent lighting versus warmer lighting. I would say, do you have a preference between fluorescence or warm lighting, Clara?
I tend to like cool lighting better, which is what natural light is. I just find, especially if I'm trying to photograph work, usually if I don't have a cool light, it ends up looking very yellow, which is a pain in the butt to fix. But this is the main light that I use. It's got a lighting umbrella on it. It's a Genere something, can't remember the brand, the type of the light. This is my main light, and I usually point it upwards so it spreads, although the lighting umbrella does that as well. But I do think it's important to have a secondary light. So you guys can see here in the background, I do have another light, and this one is pretty powerful, but it doesn't spread as much because it doesn't have the lighting umbrella. But sometimes there's like one spot where I really want to see something well, or maybe there's too big of a shadow and I'm trying to get rid of it. I do think it's good to have at least two different light sources that serve different purposes. Or do you just get away with natural light, or do you have a light like this one?
I get away with it during the daytime, and then I have a shabby lamp that I use in the nighttime, which is okay, but definitely not good enough for filming process videos or making extreme color decisions. I kind of only work in my studio at nighttime if I'm doing like line art or something that doesn't rely so much on good lighting.
I also want to point out, C. Cantrell points out Homosote. Oh my gosh, I wish I had the wall space for Homosote. If people don't know what that is, it's basically you can go to Home Depot and you can buy sheets of it. And it's basically what a bulletin board is. But the nice thing about Homosote is you can get it any size you want. So if you had a wall, you wanted to just cover it with Homosote, you get it and then you paint it white. It's basically what we had in art school, Mia, just those studios that were covered wall to wall with Homosote. I really would like to have something like that. Neil is asking, I have good enough lighting to see my work, but lighting to shoot pictures and photos for content is a problem. Any tips?
Well, I think if you're looking to do in progress video or photos while you're creating the artwork, I think it's good to invest in another light source to add to your studio space if at all possible. I think you can get away with taking your finished piece to a second location, perhaps outside or to a different room with better natural lighting. So you can just take photos of the finished piece in a different space that's more suited to that, because it is difficult sometimes to work and document at the same time for that exact reason.
Brenda says to photograph your work, take it outside in the shade. They come out great. That's pretty much what I always do. I do have the professional equipment to be able to set that up, but it's a pain in the butt. Like I don't have the space to like get out all my equipment and set it out when I can just walk outside and take a picture on my porch where there isn't like super dramatic lighting. I typically don't film in the evening for that reason because the lighting situation is just a pain in the butt. And maybe I'm watching a Hugh Jackman movie and I'm at the coffee table. So I just film at very particular times of day. Do you do that or do you film in the evening?
I mostly film in the day. I film in the light hours. Occasionally I'll film in the evening, but it's really obvious when I do that. I just got a better quality camera that is able to pick up some of the subtleties of dimmer lighting, where my smartphone, my handheld phone, can't. It just doesn't do that. So it's not worth even trying to film at night. So yeah, I think it depends on your camera.
Well, you've got beautiful lighting, but for example, this is, I think, south light, and this is the light you don't want because it just chops everything up and the lighting is not very good for that reason. So I would say in general, natural light, you want to try to find something that's diffused. North light is diffused. Not everybody has a window for that, but that's the main thing is you don't want to have those window pane shapes all over your artwork. Another thing that I think matters a lot, add things that make you happy. For example, I like my gnomes. I also like my Haniwa terracotta sculpture that I got at the Tokyo National Museum. He makes me happy all the time. Why do you think this matters?
I think you want to curate a space that you're excited to go do work in. I think if it was gray and horrible and not fun at all, you would not ever go in there. So it does help. I know in my studio space, I try and put flowers sometimes to decorate the space and to make it bright and inviting. Yeah, that's a nice little bouquet. And I think that it's adds some color to the space, and it also inspires some color palettes in my work. So you can give and take based on the space that you're in.
Tell us in the comments, what are some things that you have in your workspace that make you happy? I wish I had more things, but that Haniwa plush makes me very happy. And he's over there by my anatomical models. Even the anatomical models are fun too. I'm like, oh, I got a little dude on my desk. I got a little rib cage here. I don't know. I really like having that stuff, even if I'm not like using it all the time. We also have a question here from Uma who says, how do you do art on the kitchen table or coffee table in a shared studio with others eating and talking around you? Oh, God. I don't know if I could do that. Do you ever do that?
I used to a lot when I was living at home with my family and my two little siblings. I would take to the kitchen table and commandeer the whole thing. And it was disruptive for a lot of reasons. I mean, I liked being around people and listening into the conversation, but whenever somebody needed the table to eat or to do something else, I had to move everything, and it was this big upheaval of my process. So I mean, it's not the most convenient thing in the world, but sometimes you need to carve that corner out for yourself if there's not another option.
Actually, the only time that I draw when people are around is when I'm stuck at a party and I don't want to be there. And so I just pull up my sketchbook and I'll just draw stuff. People leave you alone. It's awesome. And because it's family, they don't really care because they're like, oh, yeah, you're an artist. You're doing that thing. So I definitely have done that on multiple occasions to get myself out of those social situations. But I find if I'm working on my stuff, I got to be alone. I can't deal with anybody else around me. I do like slight distractions, like I said. I like watching Hugh Jackman movies and Walking Dead and stuff when I'm downstairs. But other than that, I can't carry on a conversation. I just find it way too difficult, especially Alexander, you understand me when your kids are home, they have no boundaries. Like, they will knock on the door when I'm doing a live stream, and I'm like, "What do you think I'm doing?" Like, they just will not leave you alone. So that's the other thing is being at home, you have to carve out times when you know you won't be bothered. I like this from Jen. I also put up art that inspires me from other artists, and we also have Slate. I have an old tiny painting from an unknown artist and a plastic tree stump from IKEA. Totally makes me happy. Brenda's asking, what's the best device to watch workshops online? My iPad has hardly any sound. I guess, Brenda, if you could follow up on what you mean by that. Are you talking about our workshops or something else? Because it's different depending on what you're asking about. We also have Starving Artist who says, decorate with thrift store pottery and glass pieces. Useful and pretty. And I love this from September. I hang my kids' artwork up in my space. So heartwarming. We got a question here from Jazz. Question for North and South light. Is Southern light mean the window faces south? Yes. And don't ask me to help you with that. Just use the compass. My husband always knows where we're facing. It's like, oh yeah, go east. I'm like, what is go east? I don't understand. Unless I have a compass, I'm extremely confused by that. But thank you everybody for posting all of your objects. I just love hearing about artists' lives and narratives. Like Tally says, 2 paintings and a stuffed Black Panther for my brother, along with fake flowers in my art area. Remember, everybody, that the color ebook is arriving next Friday. And guess what? If you sign up, you will get an early bird discount. So you want to make sure you do that before next Friday. The link is in the YouTube video description below. And oh man, Mia, we busted our butts over this ebook.
Well, you especially. Every time I hear you, you're like, oh, I'm just working on the color ebook. I'm just working on that ebook. So a lot of work has definitely gone into this thing.
Yes, and I hope you guys will enjoy seeing that because it is a labor of love, but also it organizes color in a different way. For example, we have a color section on our website, but the thing I like about the ebook is there's a table of contents and it's a lot easier to get around things. We have structured all the topics in a way that is sequential that we think is going to really help you study color. Another reminder that May and June workshops have been announced. So you want to register now. This is a very important time period because we need, in order for the workshops to run, sufficient enrollment. So please make sure you don't delay. And another reminder, we do have other workshops coming up that still have spots open, markers, crayons, and also you want to join Mia and I in the Discord right after the stream. Please meet us in live streams. That is a category, and you want to look for the discussions channel. So meet us over there whenever you can. And we want to also remind you, Gumby wants to tell you that you should subscribe to our channel and join our global art party. Thank you everybody so much for watching. We'll see you in the Discord. Bye.